Hi, I see there's someone there, but I don't know who it is. I can't tell. If you want to tell me, that would be great. Otherwise, welcome, or either way, welcome. There are two of you. Sometimes I can see who's coming and sometimes I can't, but I'm just glad to see you here. And we are back on Facebook as before. I thought maybe we'd be on YouTube this week. I am learning quite a lot about how all these things work. So let me start by introducing myself, and then I'll talk about what we've been doing and what we're doing tonight and the whole YouTube thing that didn't happen. But I am Nicole Petrongia Huff for CocoHuff.com, CoCoHough, also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And we've been doing this every Tuesday night, live cooking classes. So the YouTube, you do it with multi-cameras, I found out today, until you have 1,000 subscribers, which I do not. So if anyone who's watching would be willing to just go to YouTube still and subscribe, that would be great. Every person counts, and eventually we'll get there, there's no doubt. So welcome, and hopefully everyone who usually comes will be able to find us. But let's talk about what I do. I've been designing and renovating kitchens in the New York and New Jersey area for about 18 years, and all of that came out of a love of cooking, which now I and have wanted to for a long time, sharing with you. So my goal is, when you have your fabulous kitchen and it's the heart of your home, which is always what's in my mind when I'm designing a kitchen, now your time in that room will be more flavorful, less stressful, and just you'll be armed with techniques to really kind of wing it a little more and experiment with your food and make it easier to make something nice for yourself and your family every night. So I see Mia and I see Jen Kendall. I have elementary school friends, high school friends. I'm so happy you guys are here. Thank you. And I know there are others too, but sometimes, like I said already, sometimes it tells me and sometimes it doesn't. So thank you for finding me again on Facebook tonight. And I've just been taking these and posting them one at a time onto YouTube until we have our 1,000 subscribers. I have 7 right now, so it's gonna be a while, but if you could help, that would be great. So I have a lot of stuff here tonight. We're making a cassoulet, which I'm gonna explain what that is. And there's a lot of, hi Kelly, hi Charlotte, thank you, compliments, I love compliments, thank you. There's a lot that goes into it, but I'll explain sort of why we're doing it. Let me show you what we have here. Let me tell you what it is first. Cassoulet is a French dish. It has a base of beans and vegetables, and then traditionally a pork sausage, duck confit, and some kind of bacon or smoked pork or cured pork product in it, and it all melts together into like a casserole, which is probably where the word came from, this cassoulet type dish that's just warm and hearty and delicious. And I think this was probably born of, hi Teresa, thank you for being here and for all your questions this week. We'll talk about that too. But I think these types of dishes were really born of this idea of like using up what's in your kitchen, or making something like a duck confit or even a duck leg, which we're going to cook today, stretch by adding the beans and the vegetables and all this other stuff to it, and it's also makes it healthier for you. So when people ask me what's my favorite food, I always go, I don't know, I like everything. But then when I make cassoulet, I always say, oh yeah, that's my favorite food. It really is like one of my absolute favorite, probably my absolute favorite things. So we're going to make this. There's a multi-step process to it, but we're going to talk about how to simplify that a little bit. My dog is barking. We're back to week 1 with that, but I'm going to ignore her. So let me show you what we have. I have 2 duck legs here, which I got from our local poultry farm today. Some pork and garlic sausage, and then a lot of vegetables and herbs and things. So carrots, celery, onions, garlic, like we always have. Some pancetta, which we've talked about. We've sort of started a bunch of recipes with a bacon or a pancetta. Hi David, welcome. You know, to give it that, to render the fat. We're going to talk a lot about rendering fat today, and to give it that cured or smoked flavor. Pancetta is cured, not smoked. If you used a bacon, it would be also smoked. What else? Some herbs and spices, and my salt and pepper, some breadcrumbs, So if you are cooking along, I don't know if anyone is actually cooking along tonight, but this is not complicated, but you would end up probably an hour after me. So you'd be finished an hour after I am finished. And if you are cooking along after tonight, just leave maybe like 2.5 hours total time, not active time obviously, but total time. So we're gonna start with our spice mixture, because what we want to start with, the traditional cassoulet, I have a lot of explaining to do. The traditional cassoulet always includes a duck leg confit, which is like this duck leg. You can see has all this fat. I'm sure you know duck has so much fat on it, which renders out into liquid fat, and it's so delicious. So what they do is they slowly cook this down with herbs and spices, and then press it into a pot and cover it with the fat. And the idea of any confit, it could be any, like in French, it really means like a preserve, is that the fat layer keeps it from going bad. So a rillette or a duck confit, all those things could stay covered in their layer of fat in your fridge for months and months, and it won't go bad. We're doing sort of a quick version tonight. We are going to render the fat out of the duck, and I'll talk about why we're doing that, and then use the duck immediately. So, all right, first thing we need to do then is to score this duck. And this is something you could do to duck or pork that has like the whole fat cap on it, to get the fat to come out and make your meat tender and delicious. I hope you all know what I mean by render. I'm sure you do, but rendering is just getting the fat to melt out of this. So if you look at this duck leg, there's meat here, and there's meat all the way out to here, but this is about 1/2 inch thick of fat. And we want that fat for future dishes. We don't want it all in our cassoulet, because that would be too much. So I'm making light, I might be making them not light enough. You want to make light cuts across the fat. Actually, I'm failing, but it's okay. In 2 directions to make a crisscross, and you don't want this here where I cut into the meat too much. You want the meat to still sort of be covered. That'll be fine, but you want it to be covered with the fat. You can be a little bit more aggressive over here where it's all fat. And then same thing on this one. I'll try to be a little gentler. Let's see. I'm making this crisscross pattern. I do this on a pork shoulder too. And then whatever herbs you put into it, like usually roasted garlic and rosemary and all that, goes more into the fat, and then on a pork shoulder the fat is melting over it the whole time it's cooking and sort of basting it. So we have that. I'm going to wipe my hands. And we're going to cover this in the herbs and spices that we're using in the dish. So I'm going to make a double amount, and we're going to get this in the oven first, so it's ready for us later. Okay, so the traditional herbs and spices of this dish are rosemary and thyme, and then actually so I have my thyme from my garden. I'm going to use some of it here, and I'm going to put some whole sprigs in too in the casserole. What was I saying? Oh yeah, some of these savory herbs that we've been using every week, the rosemary and thyme, and then some herbs or spices that you would think of as more for a sweet dish, like cloves and nutmeg. You could do a pinch of cinnamon too. I'm not doing that right now. All right, I have my thyme in here. Let you look at it. Rosemary, I'm using dried. We talked about, scrunching that up. You're going to do quite a lot. Maybe a tablespoon of rosemary, because we're using this now and later. Always kind of give it a scrunch. It's going to cook for a long time, so don't worry about it being crunchy. And now some nutmeg. I have whole nutmeg here. Can you see it? This is the whole nutmeg. You could use ground nutmeg easily, but that's just what I have. So I'm going to grate it on this microplane. So my rule of thumb for the rosemary and the thyme, and I didn't put that much thyme in yet, but you can be as liberal as you want with those. You're really gonna have a hard time overdoing it. I mean, if you put handfuls of rosemary, that would be too much, but a couple tablespoons obviously is always fine. Nutmeg and clove, tiny amounts. I don't know if you remember, a couple weeks ago we made a bechamel sauce to put on top of our stuffed eggplant, and we used just a tiny bit of nutmeg. That's traditional in that white sauce. You don't want it to taste like cookies, you want it to just have a hint of that flavor. So I can smell it already. That is more than enough for this whole thing. So I used like, oh yeah, you can see it this way. Just flattened the end basically of that nutmeg. And my cloves, I just have this ground clove, and I'm gonna put a dash of it in there as well. I have those tiny measuring spoons that say like smidgen and pinch, a dash I think, but I don't measure very often, so but they're teeny, and that's about what we did just now, like a tiny little bit of clove. This isn't maybe even enough. Let's do everything a little more. I'm doubling this because that's only enough for our duck. Sorry, I'm backtracking. A little more nutmeg, a lot more rosemary, more thyme. I want about a 1/4 cup total of all of this. Thyme, okay. There we go. All right, this is looking good. So I'm gonna spread some on this duck. I have one of these going in the oven now, so if it's not quite done when we're ready for it, you can see what it's supposed to look like. And I'm gonna show you what that fat looks like in a second. A little salt on there too, and we're gonna end up with crispy duck skin and nicely cooked duck breast that we'll add to our cassoulet later. So, of course, every week I forget to say, if you have questions, please ask them. Any questions about what I'm doing, for sure, and I hope there will be some, as well as about tools or cooking or my kitchen or kitchen design in general, your kitchen, whatever you want to know, I am here. So I'm putting this into this pan and directly into my oven. And the only thing I'll say about the pan is you're going to have a lot of fat floating around when this starts to cook out, and you just want it to be deep enough to hold it all. You know, I did this in a pie dish earlier today, and it was not enough. It was a little bit like, oh my god, I have a lot of fat here. So this is going into a 350-degree oven. Woo, glasses every time. Steamed up, I can't see. For an hour, and we'll see how that looks. All right, and I'm gonna start the pancetta in the pan, and I'm gonna talk about other stuff too. So this is our pork product. There we go. Pork fat and beans, or any pork product and beans, is always so good together. So always to think about using that as a foundation for whatever you're making with beans. And I think beans are a little bit underrated. They hold flavor the way like potatoes or pasta or starch does. So they just tend to, the more you can cook them down with your herbs and everything you're putting in there, the more flavor they take on, and like a richness and deliciousness, and they're so good for you too. So, okay, where are we? We're cooking our pancetta, and we're also going to cook up some sausages. So basically we're making, like, picture it, the small parts, the beans are small, the pancetta is diced right here, it's small, our vegetables are going to be cut up. That's like the base that's going to get tossed together, and then we're going to have our duck leg and our sausages all sort of nestled in there and cook it again together so all that flavor comes together. I hope I'm explaining it right clearly enough, but you'll see. So another thing to say is, you know, it doesn't have to be duck leg and this sausage. It can be really anything you have. If you have pork chops, if you have I would say like a dark meat, chicken or turkey, maybe not a white meat, leftover, stuff like that. This is a use it all up kind of dish, and we're doing it a little bit more traditionally today. So, all right, let's cut up the sausages. And I should also say, we have 3 people eating this tonight. If you have more, just use more. Use more sausages, more carrots. There's no rules here. about exactly how much. So I'm going a little bit light on the sausage. This is hi Jane, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. This is a pork and garlic sausage. The only thing I don't love so much in here is like an Italian sausage with fennel. I think those flavors, I shouldn't say this maybe. I think I'm speaking my truth. Those flavors are slightly different than what's going on in here. So I would almost go more towards a chorizo than an Italian sausage if I didn't have this exact one. But I love this pork and garlic. You could do an apple, maybe not apple, a chicken sausage, anything like that. I'm trying to come up with ideas as I'm talking. All right, so the pancetta is cooking. I'm also going to brown these sausages, cut side down. You can cut them any which way also. I cut them in half and half again lengthwise because I think each person sort of gets a nice chunk then. But you could cut them into rounds, you could leave them whole. I'm just sort of thinking about presentation as I go. Let's brown those up. And then we're going to talk about fat. All right. Hi, Lynn. Lynn asked where I found the sausage. That's a great question. This is from Whole Foods. I find that the Whole Foods butcher the butcher counter, has some interesting sausages. They usually have a lamb sausage. I've seen this pork and garlic sausage there quite a lot, and it's delicious. It's just a little bit more versatile and mild as opposed to the Italian sausage that you would expect normally. It's so hot in front of this oven. It's like the heat is just rising up right here in front of me. Stacy said she's never made a cassoulet. I hope you will after this. It is truly, once you see all the steps and everything, it's so easy. And what have I already said? I've already said you can make it with any meat you have in the house. It's scalable to any degree, and also it's easy to make the day before. This is similar to last week. It's something that the next day is even better because the flavors of the duck and the fat and the garlic and all that have melded together. So it's good for entertaining too, on a nice cold night. So Stacy, welcome, and I hope you will make it. Okay, let me think where we are next. We have the duck. It is scored and it's in our oven. I want to show you the duck fat. So I did this earlier with the same thing, 2 duck legs. Let me get rid of this cutting board that has the meat on it so we can start fresh. All right, I had 2 duck legs and I scored them, I seasoned them exactly like we just did. And this is what came out of it. So this is all pure duck fat. So there were brown bits in the bottom of the pan, which I love. So I strained it, put the brown bits back into the dish. There was some extra fat that I'll show you what you can do with that. But I have all of this. So do not throw this away. It's like gold. If you buy it from D'Artagnan, I shouldn't mention a brand, but it costs a fortune. It costs a fortune because it's, it takes time to make and all that, and that duck is not inexpensive. It wasn't that expensive. It was like 9 something a pound. But you will thank me in the holidays. You can cook your potatoes in it. You can just cook your next dish of this in it. Like, it's just so good. Oh, Charlotte says to try the sausages from the Swiss pork store in Fairlawn. That is also an awesome place. I sometimes get a Christmas roast there. So we should have a field trip. That would be fun. All right, so I don't think I need to use extra fat right now, but we might later. I think this happened to us once before where the bacon didn't render that much, but it actually is, there's quite a lot coming out of here right now. It's not bacon, it's pancetta, but our pork base. So we might need more fat for our vegetables. We might not. And we're going to do what we've done a few times before, which is go back and forth between, when this is browned, we take it out, we do the vegetables, we take them out, that, like in this back and forth thing. Hi Isabel, how are you? I'm so happy to see you here. Oh, Isabel, do you like cassoulet? Isabel's our resident, well, first of all, she's my French teacher, and oh, you can tell me if I'm doing this the way you would think of it. I would love to have some feedback on that. I was going to say you're our resident French person. I hope that's okay with you. Okay, so these are already starting to brown, and as you all know, I like as much browning as possible. That's why we cook these in advance, so because if you just sort of threw them in with the beans, they would never get this nice toasty color, which means you would lose that flavor. So I'm talking too much though, I should be cutting up my onions. Let's get to that. We'll move this out of the way. And as soon as this is done, we're going to start doing our vegetables basically the way we always do. So I'm sure you all see a pattern here. Isabel says she adores cassoulet. I know it really is probably the best thing. I also love rillette. I make rillette out of duck. The kids love it. I mean, you should do that sometime too. It's sort of not a pate, but almost a pate. Also covered in fat, the way I was just saying about the duck confit. And it's so delicious. All right, we're doing 1 large onion. I mean, you see the pattern, of course, like it's always carrot, onion, celery, garlic. I'd say my rule of thumb is probably 1 large onion, 2 carrots, 2 celery, and a couple cloves of garlic for 90% of dishes that I make. So I'm just throwing my peels over there. My compost bin is too far away. So if you just kind of get that pattern down, you're already halfway there on most things. All right, let me check this situation. That's looking really good. I have to turn this down because I'm behind. I'm behind the sausages here. I'm gonna flip them. And I have, okay. Oh, let's get this onion cut quickly. Too much happening at once. Okay, I'm gonna do the same technique we always do, which is down. Tuck your fingers across, parallel to the board, and then down towards the board this way. And now we have a diced onion. Oh, Isabel says this is her comfort food. I so agree. And duck fat is the best. We're going to talk about holiday cooking in a couple weeks, and we're going to use that duck fat for some potatoes. And oh my gosh, it's so good. I think that's very traditional. I don't know. Jane, you can tell me if I'm correct about this. Is that traditional in English cooking too? I feel like potatoes in goose fat. Is that? I don't know if that's just a from storybooks or if that's true. All right, I'm taking the sausages into one bowl since we're not really tossing them. We're going to nestle those in later. And then the pancetta is going in the bowl where my vegetables will go later after they're cooked. That's this big bowl over here. And my onion's going straight into the cut. So quite a lot came out here. So I don't need to add anything else right now. I tried to do a traditional English, what I thought at least was a traditional English Christmas one year, and I made a goose, but it just didn't have much meat, but we did have a lot of goose fat to cook it with for quite a while after that. Maybe it was just the one I had. All right, onions are going in, and I'm gonna chop. I just had to get that pan cooled down, so I threw them in. I threw in what I had. Now I'll do this one. Cross. Oops, I kind of went in the middle. Do this way. Alright, and I picture a cassoulet being nice and garlicky, so we're going to do quite a lot of garlic too. And it cooks for so long that you don't get that sharp, garlic flavor. Alright, onions going in. We're going to give it a stir. Oops, I threw the end in. That's too over enthusiastic. And I'm going to start salting. I like to salt in layers as I go. Okay, carrots. I'm going to do, these have been scrubbed. I leave the peels on. I'm getting aggressive with my vegetables here. Oops, this camera. Okay. Okay. No, I'm crunching in your ear. I cut my carrot end too long. All right, in half and in half again. Except for that skinny part. Hi, how are you, Emma? She said she can't wait to try it. I know, me too. It smells delicious already. This skinny part I'll just make rounds. Some of your favorite foods are. I mean, when I say this is my favorite food, people look at me a little funny sometimes. But what's your most comforting food? Isabel said this is also her comfort food. All right, carrots going in, and next is celery. I have these 2 celery stalks. They're like super green, which I don't know what that means for us, but they're the ones I had earlier were also very flavorful. And I think celery gives a nice freshness to dishes like this. All right, so I cut them down lengthwise. It was a fun shout out. You're welcome. I see a lot of fun food and drinks on your profile, so I'd love to know your favorites too. All right, even the little celery leaves can go in. They add a little something. And last but not least, for sure, is our garlic. All right, so I'm going to do quite a lot of garlic, and I'm going to save some for later because we're going to toast some breadcrumbs in garlic. Make them extra delicious. Sort of an extra step, but it's so worth it. If you ever are using breadcrumbs for anything, toast them in some fat and garlic and you won't be sorry. Kelly says she loves any bacon. Oh yeah, best comfort food, she wrote. That is just true, isn't it? Like any kind of bacony, slab bacon, this pancetta kind of thing is so good. It's very comforting. I don't know what it is about it. Like other smoked foods aren't necessarily as comforting. All right, that's 3. How many do we have? 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do a bunch. Smush your garlic cloves. I'm going to smush them all and then peel them all. That's always the best way. Assembly line style. That's probably enough. All right, these 2 for another day. And I'll put like 3/4 of that in now with our vegetables and save a little bit for the breadcrumbs. My brother said, oh, this is going by so fast now. I love it. I love all your comments. Mia says she misses it. What? Duck fat fries in Paris. Mia and I have been to Paris together, and we were supposed to go again. This year has really gotten in our way, hasn't it? Duck fat fries. I think we need to make those on this show. That just sounds delicious. And yes, cafe cocoa. Maybe that's what's coming next. And then Stacy says she loves crepes, savory or sweet. We have crepes all the time. Let's do that too. You're giving me good ideas. My brother, homemade Chinese food, which he makes the best homemade Chinese food. I think I talked about my dad a couple weeks ago and how exacting he is with his recipes, and my brother is the same way. So while he was here during quarantine, he made us some really delicious Chinese food. So thank you, David, for that. All right, I'm cutting up my garlic. I got really into your comments for a second. I love it. Charlotte said anything with potatoes in it. Yes. Oh, all the good stuff's coming out now. Chop, chop, chop. Get all this garlic chopped. I'm going across, I smushed them obviously, and now I'm going crossways. Once in a while there's this little tough end, so just put that to the side. I haven't stirred my vegetables lately, let's do that. Alright. We are going to do some potato things before the holidays, that's a good one. Alright, this needs a little bit more salt. Oh, Lynn is giving me the thumbs up on the duck fat fries. I'm gonna have to look into that. I did look into, we had a question last week from Amory about the smoking points of all the different fats. And so I've been researching, I don't know if I have a conclusive evidence yet, but duck fat was on the list, and it's like, not too high, but not too low. It was higher smoking point. What did I say? Did I say smoking point? Yeah. So higher smoking point than butter. And I think you could, well, obviously you can fry in it. So let's do it. Teresa wants a reservation at Cafe Coco too. I can't wait. Oh yes, Kelly, yes, broth in this. Do I ever make anything without broth? But you're right, I didn't mention it yet. All right, so I've divided all of this chopped garlic into like 3/4 and 1/4. So 3/4 is going in here. That's going to be in our base. And then I'll put aside this extra bit. All right, I think we're going to call it Cafe Coco when I'm able to have you all sitting here at the island while I do this. That would be so much fun. Then we can all talk in person. That'll be great. Okay, we're gonna stir these vegetables, and then I lost a little bit track of what I'm doing. I just added salt. I need to add some pepper. I need to open my oven and just check that my oh yeah, my swap outs are looking good in there. So we can get you to the finish line. Kelly, that was a good question. I forgot to mention the chicken stock, but we do. I mean, I did. Clearly, I use it for everything. All right, I'm gonna let this cook for another second. Just give it a stir. And while it's doing that, I'm going to throw the tomato paste in there. So I find, first of all, I think we said this before, I like this kind of tomato paste in a tube, personally, because the one in the can, which is perfectly fine, but I end up inevitably wasting half the can. I'm always like, oh, I'll use that other half of the can, and then it goes bad while it's in it. So this lasts a lot longer, and you can just control how much you need, if you need just a little bit. So I'd say 2 tablespoons of this, and the reason I add it now is I like to cook out that raw tomato flavor. You know, when you open a can of tomatoes, it doesn't taste like tomato sauce. It has that acidic taste to it. So we want to cook that out of this tomato paste. So I'm going to just squeeze it right into our vegetables while they're cooking. That's about 2 tablespoons, I guess. You don't want it to be too tomatoey, but just the richness of that. And then I kind of smoosh it around onto the bottom of the pan like this. And let it, whoops, drop it on the floor. Just let it toss with the vegetables, and get a little bit caramelized itself, so it doesn't have that raw flavor. I'm gonna try to save that. Yep, saved it. All right, we need to do pepper, and then the rest of the herbs and spices we put together. Good amount of pepper. I like pepper. All right, so again, this is such a good improvisation dish. So we have our rosemary, thyme, clove, and nutmeg in here. If you like other things, throw in other things. I did see some with cinnamon. I saw some with paprika when I was sort of researching what other people do for this. We're also going to throw in a bay leaf. And frequently in a dish like this, you see just the sprigs of thyme or even the sprigs of rosemary floating around for extra flavor. So I'm gonna throw these in, and what happens is all the leaves come off while it's cooking, and you just have to be aware when you see those sticks, you pull them out the same way you pull out a bay leaf. So the thyme sprigs, the rest of the thyme, let me go over here. This is all going in. Where's my camera? There it is. All the rest of this rosemary, clove, thyme, and nutmeg is going in here. I'm going to give it a little toast. I like to toast my herbs and spices too. Just gets them going. Okay. And that looks really nice. So this is all going to cook again. So we don't have to worry too much, but we want that the heat of a pan as opposed to the heat of an oven, which isn't as hot, to get it going first. Okay. Tomato paste, beans. All right, now we're up to the moment of truth. We're going to put all these vegetables in with our pancetta. And toss it with the beans. So the beans are really the star of this show, but they become one with everything else. And we're going to talk about beans. We're going to talk about what to save with the beans, all of that. So I have 3 cans of cannellini beans. I happen to love cannellini beans. You could also use great northern beans, but any kind of white beans. You can also, of course, use dried beans and cook them, but I find I don't often do that. So I find just, canned beans are a great convenience food and so much easier. Maybe not quite as cost effective, but certainly easier. Let's do this. So these have been washed on the top, and I'm going to strain them into a bowl. All right, I used to rinse them. I don't really rinse white beans anymore. I find there's nothing really on them, and this little bit of liquid can actually thicken what we're making a little bit. I do rinse the red beans if they're, kind of have that mushy bottom in the can. Does that make sense? All right, so that's one. I always start with 2 cans, and then I pretty much always decide that's not enough for all this effort, and I want the 3rd can of beans because they're going to taste so good when it's done. Okay, can number 2. But obviously I do strain them, I just don't wash them off. Okay, and the liquid that gets strained out, I also save. So I know we talked about some of the crazy things I save in my kitchen. The liquid that comes out of the can of beans, or also a can of chickpeas, is called aquafaba. And this is another thing similar to, it's not in and of itself similar to bone broth, but it is gaining popularity in the way bone broth is. As a vegan alternative to eggs, primarily. So the aquafaba, and I'm going to show you this bowl I have of it after I strain this can. All right, it actually behaves similar to egg whites. So, all right. I have a lot of it here because I've done this twice today, but can you see this? So this can be frozen in an ice cube tray, and you can pull it out and use it whenever you need it. So it's a vegan alternative to egg whites. If you're making meringues, it can whip up the way meringues can and hold a sugar at a peak and bake down into baked Alaska or that kind of thing. It's also great for cocktails. So anytime you would use an egg white in a cocktail, you can put a little bit of this, and when you shake it will get that frothy top to it without a raw egg in it. So I'm into mocktails right now, and there are a lot of mocktail recipes I've seen that include aquafaba. So that's what this is. So chickpeas, white beans, anything like that. I prefer the white bean one. And we don't eat a lot of chickpeas because my daughter is allergic. but save this in ice cube trays and you can use it. And you can make like a Tom Collins, you can make meringues, you can make so many things, and it's just it's a great thing to have. And it can also be a little bit of a thickener in a sauce like this, which is why I don't rinse the beans. Okay, so let's stir up. So we have this whole pot of deliciousness now, and we're just going to taste it for salt and pepper, and then start building the actual cassoulet to bake. Oh, I shouldn't forget, I'm supposed to be doing my breadcrumbs while I do that. So back over here, I am going to use some of the duck fat, which is over here, in this same hot pan. Duck fat, like a tablespoon. That is going to be so good. And my garlic, where did it go? Garlic over here that we chopped before. You know I like to start garlic in a cold oil, so I got that in there as fast as I could. And we're about to add our breadcrumbs. So you can obviously make your own breadcrumbs. These are just plain breadcrumbs, and I'm going to use a couple handfuls, maybe a total of like 1.5 cups. So let me get my fire back on. And if you look at the color now, yeah, that's maybe 1.5 cups. The color of them now versus a few minutes from now, you'll see why we do this. It just brings an extra level of toastiness, plus the garlic and the duck fat, and makes it so much more delicious. Maybe a pinch of salt too. So anytime you top something with breadcrumbs, think about doing this. It takes only a few minutes. Also be careful not to let it burn, because it really goes fast. All right, so remember that I said that. Maybe remind me not to let it burn in a second. And we're tossing our beans. Let me just taste one. Oh, they're so good. Pinch more salt, pinch of pepper. So like I said, the longer it kind of melds together, the better. You can taste the garlic, but eventually it will all become one garlic flavor together. All right, I'm gonna clear this space a little bit. And, all right, moment of truth. What should I do first? Hold on. We're going to look at the duck legs that are already cooking. Okay. All right, so I have these, oh, every time. There. Oh yeah. All right, you're gonna see how much fat came out. So these are 2 duck legs, the same as what we just did together. They've been in there about an hour. And I'd say that's about at least 2 cups of duck fat that rendered out that I will strain and save for the future. So once you strain it and save it, you can freeze it. You can freeze it indefinitely, I would say. I mean, it's not going to go bad for a long time in your freezer. You can refrigerate it probably like 6 months, actually, because it is technically would have been preserving a non-refrigerated food in the old days. So I'd say 6 months. I hope that's the company line here. David says it looks so good. It does. You could just eat this. I mean, this alone could be dinner, just some duck breast with like some kind of sauce on it. Oh my gosh. I like a sweet sauce on duck. All right, let me think what I'm doing here. I did a little bit out of order. Putting this to the side. We're gonna come back and strain that in a second. And let's get our room to do everything I want to do. This is our casserole dish. I've been putting all my utensils in it. I'm going to pour a little bit of the duck fat at the bottom too. The way you would butter a dish, just to give it extra flavor. Brush that around. Why not, right? Do this. And then pour this whole bean mixture on top. So this has the pancetta in it. It has the browning from the sausage in it. It's about to have the duck in there as well. And I'm going to smooth that out in here. Okay, now we're going to stir our breadcrumbs that, as predicted, I almost forgot about. They're starting to get a little bit darker in color, not much yet. They're going to get a toasty golden brown in a second. This is one of those things that goes from 0 to 60 pretty quickly. All right, and if you can see, this is actually too hot to handle. This duck fat is still bubbling away. I mean, that is really hot, so it's good to give it a second. All right, back over here. Let's put our sausage in there. And the way I think I'll present this is sort of the sausage quarters around the outside and the duck in the middle, and then we're going to put the breadcrumbs over the top and brown it all in the oven. So brown side up, I think looks nice. Put these in here. Always take the juices from whatever meat you've browned and make sure you pour them right over, because it marries the flavors together and adds that flavor back in. And now I need to move this to the side to deal with the duck for a second. So let's do that. I can't say enough about, well, a lot of things, but I was going to say I can't say enough about this little pot handle holder came with some pans that I have, and it has saved me so many times, because when you put it pot like this in the oven, you know, and then pull it out, and then you forget that it was in the oven, and you grab this handle. It's so easy to do that, and I've burned my hand many times. So always use something like this, or put a dish rag over your handle like that to help you remember not to scorch the heck out of your hands. It's not fun. All right, step one, I'm going to take the duck. Whoa, that looks good. Super hot. Take it out of this pan. It's sticking a little bit. Drain the fat off. Like I said, I mean, that alone could be dinner. Put that on my board. I'm going to save these brown bits. I think I'll just toss them in actually with the whole thing, the beans and everything right now. Like that. And then, so besides having duck fat, you know, to use for the future, we render it out, because you don't want, if all that duck fat went into your cassoulet, it would be obviously way too much. So we render it to get it out of the dish that we're making, and to get this crispy skin. The crispy skin of any kind of chicken or duck or goose is the best part. So that's what we've achieved here. This is not the one we just did. This is a swap out that was in for a little over an hour. So the one we just did will take a little longer if you're cooking along. Knife, here it is, okay. So there's still this long piece of skin. You could leave it, you could cut it off. So I'm gonna cut it off actually, and just eat it. No, I'm kidding. You could just eat it. It's like a duck crackling, actually. It's such a nice treat. If there's more fat in there to render, I could also put it into like a little frying pan and get more fat out of it and then eat it, because then it would be really, really crispy. And that's the best part, especially when it has all that salt and seasonings on it. All right, so this one, for instance, it's crispy. Can you see that? I'm burning my fingers. But if you look at the underside, there's still quite a lot of fat in there that hasn't rendered. So you could just put that in a little, you could put it back in the oven, or you could put it in a little frying pan, and you'll see you get even more with that. And I'm gonna eat this. Oh my God, it's so good. That's so good. So let's see here. We can strain our fat in a minute. Actually, we'll do that when it cools a little bit. So we have fat to the side there. We have our 2 duck legs, and those are going Oh, I keep forgetting to stir those breadcrumbs. Okay, let's see how they're doing. See, they're getting a little bit darker. A couple more seconds. I could turn my flame up a little. Breadcrumbs toasting. They smell like garlic. They smell so good. All right, we're going to just sort of nestle these duck legs in here the way we did with the sausage. We want them to sort of get all the flavors and give its own flavor to the beans, so get them in. That's one. That's two. Get it down to the bottom, make like a little space for it, and get some beans on top, blah, 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 like that. Blah, blah, blah. That's the first time I've said that. All right, now, Kelly, it's time for the chicken stock. So I have about 2 cups of chicken stock. I don't know if we'll use all of it. You want enough that when it goes back in the oven, it's boiling and it goes up, like kind of bubbles up and melds with the breadcrumbs, but you don't want so much that the whole thing is liquidy and too wet. So I basically just go over the whole thing once, and let's see, you should see it starting to come up. I'd say I'm going to end up using about a cup, and I'll probably pour a little bit over the breadcrumbs too. All right, checking our breadcrumbs. We are almost at the finish line here. I think the one I made to show you is, whoa, it's dark, but it looks good. It's been in there a little bit longer than we planned, but it looks so good. All right, these are toasted. They could go a little bit darker, but they're like a light amber. And I'm going to just, they're hot, so I'm gonna hold it over like this and sprinkle this over the top and try to do it evenly. Ooh, they're sizzling. So like I said, the liquid and the crumbs, it's going to all kind of come together. A little bit more. Okay, that is it. So this is going back in the oven now for up to an hour at 350, an hour-ish. So if you were cooking along, you're probably still waiting for your duck legs to cook. Let's see what the ones look like that, that we put in at the beginning. So they've been in like 45 minutes. They're probably almost ready. And then this goes for an hour. Ready for the glasses to steam up again. Okay. Okay, you'll see the difference. These have been in for 45 minutes. The other ones were in like a little bit over an hour. So we have quite a lot of fat there, but this isn't really as browned yet. So it needs like another 20 minutes. If you're cooking along, 20 more minutes, and then you'll be ready. This is not crispy yet. That's what you want. You can see the difference there. That's going back in. I'm going to quickly show you how to strain the fat, and then we'll see the final product. You can also, I should have maybe done this, but if you want to really go over the top, a little bit of the duck fat over the top of those crumbs. Actually, I'm going to do that if we have time. Let's do that quickly. And maybe a little broth, because I said I would. Out of the oven you go. That's just going to help it be a little bit browner. So a tiny bit more broth on top. And you know, if I keep saying duck fat, which of course is so good, but if you were doing this for the first time, you wouldn't have the duck fat. So or if you just don't have any, you know, olive oil is fine. Butter at this point would be delicious. There's certainly a lot of alternatives. Okay, that's going back in. And then in an hour, that one will be done. We're going to look at straining this. Just very quickly, that'll take us a second. I need a clear bowl. All right, so here is, I said last week I like to dirty every pot and every pan in my kitchen. So here's this entire pan of duck fat and like a little strainer. Make sure your strainer is dry. You don't want it to splatter and you don't want liquid in the final product. So very simply, just strain it out. And remember, this is burning hot still. You could use all that brown stuff in your final dish, which I didn't just now, but that would be delicious. And then you have all of this duck fat to make your delicious potatoes with. All right, and now the moment of truth. We're going to take the finished one out of the oven. So I hope I made it look not complicated. I hope I made it look pretty easy. We did sort of the official version. And like I said, you can just sort of use whatever's in the house to make one as well. This got dark while we were talking, but it looks so good. It looks really good. Wow. Okay. I may even pour a little stock on it to make it soupier if we want. It looks darker on the camera, oh boy. It's a little bit of like dark brown bits around the edges, but it is sizzling. The crumbs sort of melded into the whole thing. I'm gonna taste it and see if it needs it. But if it looks like a little bit dry because it was in there while I was talking the whole time, just a little stock on top will bring it back. So let's take a taste of this. I shouldn't say it looks dry. Oh, and it does not look. It looks perfect. You can see the beans are under this crispy crust. Let's taste. Oh my God. That is really, I'm just gonna go another bite. Suda says she's just joining and it looks delicious. And Stacy says, wow, yum. It really, I have to say, what if I just stood here and ate the whole thing? That would be weird. It's delicious. I'm going to pour, since it's very hot, this will immediately get hot. Just like the tiniest little stream of chicken stock to moisten the top back up. And other than that, it is really melded together and beautiful. So we're going to serve this up right now on a plate so you can see what it looks like. Let me make some room. Okay. Actually, I don't want to put that on the burner. That's not going to work. My brother said, what if you just ate in silence on the camera for the next hour? I kind of feel like doing that sometimes. Would that be entertaining for all of you? I mean, last week, what did we make last week? It was, oh, the soup. It was so good. I was just like, I ate the whole thing and then I was like, oh, I didn't take a picture. I forgot. So it's good to like your own cooking. That's always a good sign. So let's spoon some out. I have this plate here. I have some nice bread. I probably should have put that in the recipe. It's just a baguette or an Italian bread. This is a nice bread from my friend Charlotte, who was here. I'm not sure if you're still here, who just opened a bakery. And it's just great to have that to like sop up all the juices while you're eating this. All right, and I'm going to help myself to one of the duck legs and a piece of sausage and all these beans. Oh, you can't see that. Like this. So we have our browned sausage here. This is a whole duck leg that's been, you know, kind of cooked in its own fat. And then all these beans and crumbs and everything kind of came together so nicely. And I always like to put a little garnish on top. So a couple parsley leaves just to give it a green kick. Gives it the perfect finish. So let's hold this up so you can see it. Oh, can you see it? Or could you see it better before maybe? There you are. And I'm gonna try it as well. Charlotte is here. So we're having this with your bread, which is the most delicious bread. Okay, let's try beans. Oh my God. They really absorb the flavors of the garlic and the pancetta, and I'll just try that sausage. Oh, I have to try the duck too, hold on. For the next hour. That would be very funny. All right, and the duck, because it's been cooked twice now, you can see this, it's like pull apart tender, which is what we're going for. And if you did like the full duck confit that you can buy or make, but it takes a couple days, it would be pull apart tender like that. That is good too. Well, I wish you were all here. There's plenty for everyone, and that would be so much fun. So I see that in our future, but in the meantime, I'm just glad you were here with me on this feed. And I hope to see you again next week. So I'm getting lots of compliments on there. Thank you so much. It really is delicious. Please try it and let me know how it goes. And next week, we are going to be doing a turkey. So that should be interesting. Obviously, we'll have like one that's done ahead of time because it's a several hour process, and we'll be talking about brining and some different ways of doing that and keeping like the breast tender while the other part cooks. And I still have yet to figure out exactly which method we're going to use, but hopefully it will be the best way we can possibly do it. And a little bit more Thanksgiving the next week, and then there's a whole schedule I posted on Facebook today coming up. Also, let me know if you have any holiday requests. I mean, right now it just says holiday week 1, 2, and 3. I have some ideas, but if you have requests, please let me know. And questions, DM me anytime. I am here. So, thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm getting all the compliments. Come over. I need it. But oh, one last plea to please go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. That would make me very happy as well. And I hope to see you next week. And love to you all. Bye-bye.